You're watching Every Days and Saturdays, USCC veteran. Let's go, baby. And here's your host, Brian. And what's going on, friends and family? Let me get this situated. Okay. All right, there we go. How's everybody doing? I hope you guys are having an amazing day out there. And like always, I'm excited to have my next guest, and especially because he's a Marine, so we love everybody on the show, but we're a little partial to the Marine Corps, maybe just a little bit. I don't know why. And we always got Chesty back here in the background of us now. He's got my back, baby. We talked about Chesty a lot, in our Marine Corps time. So to have him behind me, and I got to thank my buddy Don at Valkyrie Art worked up that way. Sheesh. All right. Got to get my directions right. So, got to give him all the credit in the world. He is an amazing artist. You guys got to go check out his artwork. I've never had artwork speak to me like his artwork does, but my gosh, it really does. And another guy that we got on here is an amazing dude. His name is AJ Cox. He is a Marine Corps veteran. Something that we get to hear a little bit about is the Marine Corps League, I believe it is. And hear all about that. I myself, I'm not very familiar with it, so I'm excited to hear all about that and his story, his experiences, and what he's got going on today. And here to talk all about it himself is AJ Cox, baby.
Hey,
what's up, brother?
How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing amazing, especially now that I got you here, bro.
Man, I don't understand
why
on
your show.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I don't know why you're so partial to Marines. I don't know what the deal is.
I have no clue, dude. I mean, my arm's kind of like Marine Corps out. I'm kind of a little. I got way moto when I got out, man. I just,
Yeah, as it should be. I like it.
I feel like when we're in, we do everything in our to not look Marine-ish. We don't want to have the haircuts, and everybody tries to go real low reg with it. At least, from my experiences.
Yeah, but it's
there's
true,
always got, no one wants to have that Hitler mustache either.
Oh my God. Such a pain in the butt. I wore a mustache for most of my career, I'd say, but man, what a pain in the butt it was. Just constant.
Can't touch the nose, and it's got to be inside the lip. So some people looked a little bit like, like
it's true. It's true. Yeah. You had to be real careful. I always push the boundaries. I let it go just a little bit until somebody be like, "Hey, man, you need to fix it." Okay, I'd trim it up, and then I'd start letting it grow back out a little. I didn't want to look too much like Hitler.
Yeah, I think a lot of us pushed the envelope when it came to regs. Like you always started noticing the guys getting lower and lower on their haircuts. As long as when they got the cover on it, it looks like they got a line going. And they take it off, it's like poof. You're like, dang, bro.
they'd have pushing the limits. What is it, 3 inches on top, or is it 4 inches? I can't remember what it is. And they'd have the entire length of it on top, and then of course the low reg. Yeah,
I just know you had to have 0. I think it's 0 to 5.
Is it
0 to 5 or 0 to 6?
5 is a lot.
Yeah, it kind of is. But I felt like the air winger dudes always kind of had like the longer hair,
Yeah.
How's the supply, dude? But AJ, man, let's go ahead and get to know all about you, bro. Where you grew up, what made you decide to be a badass Marine, what you did while you were in, and what your transition like, how did you fall, land?
Okay.
And what you got going on today, bro? Floor's all yours,
right,
man.
Well, I grew up in a little town in Vian, Oklahoma, the big city. When I say big city, we literally had one 4-way stop sign. That was the center of town. So that was, how big the town actually was. In fact, if you ever watched Where the Red Fern Grows, it's old school movie, right? When we were growing up. But in that, he is a kid that grows up here in Oklahoma, and he goes to the town of Tahlequah to pick up the dogs. Do you remember this?
No.
You don't remember that? Oh, okay. Well, for anybody that does, he goes to Tahlequah
I
to
bet
pick them
someone
up.
will be like, yeah.
Yeah. He goes to Tahlequah to pick up his dogs, And that scene that was filmed supposedly in Tahlequah was actually filmed in my hometown of Vian. There was a little train depot there. And then the downtown part, Brockman's store is still there. Well, the building, it's no longer Brockman's store, but the buildings are still there. I mean, it's a pretty cool little downtown area. But nothing spectacular. There's nothing there. I mean, there's hardly any restaurants and stuff there, you know. But
Forever remember that taping, though, right? I mean, that's
yeah, yeah, it's a cool little town. It's a great place to grow up. I grew up, you know, going out with friends, riding bikes, going out into the woods, you know, shooting guns. We used to have BB gun fights all the time. Those are always a blast. So we
take
ride
the
four
back roads
wheelers.
home.
That's right. Yeah, ride four wheelers. You know, those types of things. Basically just getting into trouble, going out and just having a good time. And so that was most of my childhood growing up. When I hit sixth grade, I joined the band. So I started in my music career, and I'd played baseball and stuff like that. And in fact, I played baseball up till about eighth grade. But then I kind of had to pick and choose at that point. Once you go into high school, what you want to do. So I stuck with music and stayed in the band, and I really enjoyed it. You know, I played drums in church, and I did all that type of stuff. My dad was a minister, so I was constantly in church. So what is one thing a preacher's kid wants to do? He wants to be active and do something to keep himself awake during church. And playing music was one of those things, which was pretty cool. But my dad was a prison minister. And I practically grew up in prisons going around in Oklahoma. And he went to all of them. He went to the heavy, was it maximum security prisons? I mean, he went everywhere.
Wow.
And you know, I grew up around criminals, and so much so that I remember we never locked the house. We kept the keys in the car. Uh, it was just that's just the way it was. And I remember that we went to prison, and I saw one of the guys that I was familiar with, whatever. You know, he'd been in prison for a while, and like 2 or 3 weeks later, I was coming home from school. Nobody was there. So I opened the door and I go inside, and there's that guy from prison sitting on my couch. And I'm like, well, hey, how you doing, man? He's like, oh, I'm good. Your dad told me to stop by when I got out. You know, so he said, if I'm not here, just go ahead and go in, make yourself at home, and just wait for me. And I was like, ah, that's really cool. Okay, well, hey, well, congratulations on getting out of prison. And I went and got my stuff, and of course, I jetted and took off because I was the only one there. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to, I don't want to
uh,
test fate here. You know, I want to
right.
get out of Dodge. But I went outside and played and did my thing. But you know, that was like growing up. You know, and I would go six days a week to church of
Wow.
some form and nature. You know, so. Of course, you probably couldn't tell
Definitely
by
humbled
some.
you.
Oh
Definitely probably
yeah,
humbled you a lot then,
yeah,
huh?
yeah, yeah, and just knowing that what could happen, right? You know, if you go out and you do things and stuff like that. For a
And I'm
while,
sure you
my
learned
dad
a
was,
lot about forgiveness, right? Because your dad
yes,
probably taught you a
absolutely,
lot about
yeah,
being forgiving.
yeah, which plays into my Marine Corps career quite a bit. You know, later as I get into it. But um, my dad, he was a truant officer. I was trying to think of the word. He was a truant officer. So if kids were skipping school and stuff like that, he'd go pick them up and take them in and those types of things. But he started a program where he would take them to the prisons and they would go check things out. And then they would come back and those showed Scared Straight or something like that. It was
Yeah.
kind of like that, right? Well, my experience in prisons were nothing like that, right? Everyone was very friendly. It was like just going to church anywhere. And so one day I'm like, Dad, everybody comes back scared to death. I was like, I want to go check it out. And he's like, okay, yeah, all right, but you got to hang out in the back, you know. And I'm like, okay. So I'm walking behind everybody, and as we're going through, they're like catcalling them, and they're like, "Oh, if you're here, I'd be taking you out back. I'd be raping you, and this and that and that." I mean, they're saying some pretty crazy, graphic things, right? And the kids are freaking out. But I was in the back, and I'm laughing because I know the guys that are there yelling and saying all this stuff because I go to church with them. I was like, these guys are nothing like that anymore, you know. And it goes to show that people do change. even though some people make some really, really bad decisions in life, it doesn't mean that you can't change. Sometimes that's a moment in time of making a bad decision.
Sure.
And now there are those that are habitual and will do it over and over and over. But yeah, you're right. Forgiveness is a huge thing, especially in the Christian faith is a huge thing, forgiveness.
Sure.
But yeah, it very humbling seeing those types of things. So I played music throughout high school, did that, went on band competitions, going all over the place. It was lots of fun playing drums. And of course, I met my wife in school. Actually, I met her when I was in sixth grade. She was in eighth grade at the time. And one of my buddies liked her, so I went up to her and I was like, "Hey, one of my buddies likes you, da 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 da." And yeah, it turned into a big old mess. But anyway, at that point, I knew I was like, that's the woman for me. And I went and told my mom. I was in sixth grade, mind you. I told my mom, I was like, someday I'm gonna marry that girl.
That's
And my
wild.
mom's like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, you know. And so
That's
we
cute,
went.
son.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's exactly what happened. And so we went through, school and everything, all the way up to her senior year in high school. So that put me in 10th grade, and I tried and tried and tried, and she kept turning me down all the time, all the time. And finally, she accepted toward the end of her senior year. And then, so at that point, we started dating. I dated for 2 years until I got out of high school and then got married. But yeah, I was in love with her forever. And she would always say, the reason that I wouldn't date you was because you were shorter than me. So yeah, that was the big thing. So
Uh,
finally, whenever I got tall enough, she was like, "Okay, it doesn't look so weird. I'll go ahead and date you,"
just
type
can't
of
use
thing.
that as an excuse no more. Like
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you're all like,
yeah.
nah.
But then we got married and moved off. We went to Stillwater, Oklahoma, to Oklahoma State University,
Wow.
and I was able to get a small scholarship through the band there, and was playing. I was playing on the drum line. I was not the most talented individual. I could play, but I couldn't, like, a lot of the language that they use, because I came from a small town. Uh, the language they would use when they're, like, hey, I need you to play a ratamikyu, or I need you to play a flamadiddle, or I need you to, put a cheese here, put a cheese there. And I'm like, I don't have any cheese. What the heck are you talking about, man? And these are all drum terms of playing different rudiments. But once they would show me it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I can play that. Okay. And then I'd started putting it together, and I got to where I was doing pretty decent, but I was not doing decent in everything else. In fact, my English professor was the one that talked me out of college. Um,
Ah.
yeah, so I remember it was my third semester,
It's like
and I
Marine
go in.
Corps language might be better for you.
Yeah, yeah. So I go in, and one of the times that I went to class, and she pulls me aside after, and she goes, "Why are you going to school?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of have to if I got to go here for music or whatever." She goes, "You're wasting lots of money coming here,
Oh
and you're
my.
failing everything except your music classes. So why are you doing that?" And her just kind of saying it did put it in perspective a little bit for me. And I'm like, that's a good point. Like, why am I wasting my money going to
You're
school?
sitting there
And
drowning. Yeah, the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
time.
And so at that point, I told my percussion instructor, Wayne Bovinchin, I was like, hey, Wayne, man, I'm done. He was a little upset with me, but it is what it is. I was like, I'm wasting my money. This isn't good and healthy. So got out. We moved back to Vian for a little bit. I worked in a grocery store, and then I did that for about a year. And I was getting close to um, becoming a manager, the main manager of a store. They were getting ready to give me my own store. And one day we're driving down the road, me and the wife, and I was like talking about the Marine Band, and she's like, "Why didn't you ever try to do something like that?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't think you would be interested in me joining the Marine Corps."
Yeah,
And she was
you
like,
don't
"Well,
ever
I
hear
don't."
wives encouraging someone to
y-
join.
Yeah, and she's like, "Well, I don't know. I don't really know anything about it." So, and now the reason I've talked about the Marine Corps band, and I didn't say this earlier, but my dad was a Marine from Korea.
Oh,
And yeah, so he served with the 1st Marine Division in Korea.
wow.
And now my dad was not a stellar Marine. Let's put it that way. He came in a private, he left a private.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, he's
yeah, so
got a
he
little
he
NJP maybe.
oh yeah, more than one. Yeah,
More
he
than
was
one.
promoted and demoted several times. So
He was one
there
of
was
those Marines, huh? Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. In fact, when he joined, he was in Arkansas, and when he joined, he his
He's a
buddy talked him
rebel,
into
huh?
it. Oh
Was
man,
he like a rebel at heart, man?
yeah, he was always in trouble until he
Yeah.
became a Christian. He was a hellraiser, man. I'm telling you. In fact, the reason he ended up in Oklahoma was because he jumped bail in Arkansas, ran across the state line to Oklahoma so he wouldn't get arrested, and that was when he had 6 kids.
This guy,
Yeah.
gosh damn.
So yeah, he was a little bit of a rebel. So his buddy talked him into joining the Marine Corps, and they was like, well, there's 2 places we can go. We go to San Diego, or we can go to Paris Island. And my dad, he's from Arkansas. He didn't know. He's like, Paris, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I'll go to Paris. So they ended up at Paris Island, and him and his buddy were supposed to be together the whole time. And he never did see his buddy, and he's like, what the heck? We got separated.
Getting gnawed up by sand fleas from,
Yeah,
I've never
yeah.
been there, but I heard that, they got nasty
Oh yeah,
sand fleas. So
oh yeah, that's for sure.
he's like, this
But
is Paris? What the
yeah, he's like, what happened? Paris is ugly.
this isn't the Paris I've heard about.
So he was looking for his buddy the whole time, and
Oh
several months
shit.
in, he was running outside to get in platoon formation, and he sees his buddy in his platoon, like 4 people away from him, and he's like, "What? How long have you been here?" And he's like, "I've been here the whole time." And they're like, "What?" And they didn't even recognize each other. So I don't know,
That's
kind of
wild.
crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, good guy. He goes throughout his career. He meets up with a CO, and him and the CO never got along. Always arguing, fighting, all kinds of stuff. He asked and like went to his CO. Is like, you got to give me orders out of here. Like I can't do anything because I don't like you and you don't like me. So the guy's like, yeah, sure. Gave him orders. You go somewhere else. Several months later, the CO shows up there, and he's like, "Oh, you got to get me out of here." So he does this 2 or 3 times, and the last time he was at Lejeune, and the guy comes in, and he's like, he's meeting him. He hadn't even taken over yet, but he's meeting him out there, and he's like, "You got to get me out of here." And he goes, "Well, the only thing I can do is I can send you to Korea." And my dad's, well, it's got to be better than being here with you. And he's like, go ahead and send me. So he was with 2nd Marine Division. He was an Amtracker. So they sent him to 1st Marine Division, and then he went to Korea with 1st Marine Division. And now that was the tail end of the war out there. But I remember him telling. I'll tell one last story about this, and I apologize.
No. It's
It's
all good,
all of a
man.
sudden becoming about my dad, not me. But it does play. It does play. I promise. So he was in Japan, and he was like coming up on time to leave. Right, he had like a month left, and he's like, I'm EAS and I'm getting out. Like I'm going back home to Arkansas, and they were doing an inspection for the new CO, and they come walking down the line, right? And he says the CO goes by him, and he sees him out of the corner of his eye, and it was that CO that he, had always been had a hard time with. And the CO walks by him, and he like stops, and they're like boom, boom, boom. Everybody bumps into him, and he backs up, and he looks over, and he goes, "Well, Private Cox, it's funny seeing you here." And he's like, "How you been doing?" And my dad's like, "Well, I was doing really good up to the point that I saw you." And he's like, at that point, I knew I was having a bad day. And he goes, "Oh," and my dad said, "But I can do this standing on my head. I've only got a month left. This will be no problem. I'll do my month and then I'll go home." Uh, so started going or what have you, and he was doing okay. He gets to 2 weeks, and he's like, "I don't have orders. Nobody's giving me anything." So he goes in to see the CO. He's like, "Where's my orders?" And the CO, "Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you. Don't worry about it." So like a week out, "Hey, where's my orders?" "Ah, don't. We're going to take care of you, Private Cox. Don't you worry." So they're getting ready to ship out. Like it's almost his EAS day, right? We're like 3 or 4 days from it, and
Mm-mm-mm.
they're getting on a ship. So he's got all of his stuff, and somebody yells for him, "Hey, the CO needs to see you. Get all your stuff." So they go, and he goes up to the CO, and CO's like, "Well, nice knowing you, Private Cox." And he's like, "Well, what about some orders to get me home?" And the CO looked at him and says, "Knowing you, you'll make it home long before I do." And he turned around and he watched all his buddies leave. And he was on an army base. Well, he's the only Marine there. And so he did what any good Marine would do. He jumped the fence and went out into town and partied for like a week, and stumbled back on the base. The CO
Oh,
of the base actually found out that a Marine was there, freaked out because they were having a commanding general's inspection. So they sent him on a civilian ship, and sent him back to work his way back to Seattle, Washington. So he worked his way back to Seattle on the civilian ship, and then he had to hitchhike from Seattle back to Arkansas. And that was his exit out of the Marine Corps.
that is wild.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is a wild story, man. Yeah,
I wish I had
definitely has to be captured. That's a good one.
yeah, yeah,
Gosh,
and I wish
damn.
I had him telling the stories. Like I wish I would have recorded it all. Which is one of the reasons that you're doing the podcast. I do the podcast. We need to get these stories told, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and those are just small parts that he would tell. And for the longest time he didn't really talk about a lot of it. Not until I became a Marine later down the road.
Right.
But anyway, so let's see, where was I at? Oh, yeah. So I talked to my wife about it. She's like, "Why didn't you ever do that?" So I went in and on my lunch break, I had a 30-minute lunch break, and I walk into the recruiter's office, and I was like, "Hey, I want to join the band." And of course, recruiters, they get double the points for bandsmen, right? So, yeah, oh, hold on, hold on. And he's like, "Sit down, sit down." So he's scrambling, trying to get his stuff straight. And I sit down, and he lays out the tags, right? He's gonna do the sales pitch on me. And I tell him, I'm like, "Hey man, I'm on a 30-minute lunch break. I ain't got time for this." I was like, "If you give me an audition and I pass the audition, I'm in. If you don't, I'm out. Because the only branch of service I'm going to join is the Marine Corps." And he was like, "Okay." So I gave him my number. I go back to work, and he called me several days later. "I got you an audition." So I was like, "Okay." I went and did the audition, passed it, and then several months later, I was shipping off to boot camp, and that was in '99. So,
So damn, you
uh,
go through an audition
oh
to
yeah,
get
man.
for the band, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You got to audition. It's the only MOS that you actually have to like audition for and be selected for before you sign any paperwork.
What instrument were you doing it with?
Drums.
Drums.
Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
I mean it was good. Thank goodness I went to college and learned the year and a half that I was there and learned what I needed to in order to get in.
I'm sure you
So
were ahead of a lot of some of the guys they were seeing already. I mean, in terms of your knowledge, going to school for it.
He, I'd say well, about in that time they were taking a lot of high schoolers and stuff. Nowadays they're taking more of that college, some college experience type of thing is the average. But you see guys now coming in with like master's degrees,
Right.
doctorates. I'm not
Sure.
even kidding. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. But so yeah, I joined up in '99, February '99. My wife, and when I came home and told her, she was not too pleased because I didn't talk to her about it. I just did it. And I was like, "I ship out in a couple of months." She's like, "What?" And
You said.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what
Yeah.
I say. I was like, "But you said," and then she's like,
Right.
"Well, I didn't mean like right now." And yeah, she's a planner. I'm not. So it is what it is. So I shipped off, went to boot camp. So I show up to MCRD San Diego. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
That's
showed
good
up there.
Marine life.
It was a good time. I mean, San Diego is an interesting place because the weather is always nice, but it is definitely chilly in the evenings and downright cold sometimes in the evenings, which was very strange to me. For it to be nice every day. But I mean, it was pretty cool. Of course, now you went to San Diego, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was in
Yeah, you
CRD as
see the
well.
planes in and out all the time, you know, and
And then
that's
you're
a
like, oh, I wish I was on that one, no matter where it goes. You
yeah,
know?
yeah, I'm telling you,
Yeah,
man.
that is a
Uh,
little bit of a mind fuck, man, for reals.
Yeah, but I picked up with Bravo Company. I still remember my drill instructors and still talk to some of them. I have lately. I've reached back out and made contact with them. But Senior Drill Instructor Staff Sergeant Ross, Drill
Nice.
Instructor Staff Sergeant Rudisell, Drill Instructor Staff Sergeant Lopez, and Drill Instructor Staff Sergeant McWilliams were all
That's
my drill
wild.
instructors. And they were actually a good bunch of guys. They did a fantastic job. They never put hands on us. Uh, you know, they treated us like men. Uh, and they would yell and scream and do all the things that drill instructors do. But you know, they treated us pretty good, to be honest with you. So I had a good experience overall in boot camp. Some funny stories. Well, drill instructor Staff Sergeant Lopez was short little dude, right? And anytime he wanted to yell at me, he would always stand in front of me. He'd be like, "Elevator down," and you'd have to shrink down to his level, so he could yell at you. And then he'd be "Elevator up," and you'd have to go back up. So that was always fun. When we were up north, you know, you get to go up north. We were up
Oh yeah.
there,
At some
and
range.
yeah, I had some issues. I don't want to get too graphic, but like my nuts were hurting, right?
Ah, yeah, shit.
And we had just finished grass week. It was the weekend leading up to firing week, and I'm like, it was getting bad. So I go in. I waited for the senior drill instructor to be on duty, of course, and so I go in and I bang on the hatch, and he tells me to come in. So I go in and he's like, "What's the problem?" So I'm trying to do the recruit thing. This recruit has got an issue, sir. And he's like,
Uh,
"Okay, what's the issue?" This recruit, this, and he's like,
oh,
"Okay,
what? That's
stop.
a
Just
hard one.
drop the recruit stuff. Just tell me what's going on." I was like, "Sir, my balls hurt." And I'll never forget because he wasn't really looking at me. He's like doing this. And I said that and he just stopped and his eyes got big. He looked at me and he's like, say that again. So I did. And he's like, well, did you try, And I was like, yeah, I did. I did. It's not that. And and he's like, okay, well, you're going to medical tomorrow. So I ended up going to medical, and I see the doc, and the first question the doc asked me, when's the last time you had sex?
Yeah.
And I'm like, 2 months ago, like with my wife. And he's like, is that it? And I'm like, yes, like there's nothing else, man. There's nothing else there. So he goes, okay, well, we're going to check a couple of things. So he leaves, and then the corpsman walks in, and the corpsman's like, oh, he's all happy go lucky type. Hey, how's it going? What's going on, recruit?
The
He's like,
devil
what are we
dog.
gonna? Yeah, he's like, what's going on with you? And he opens the thing and he looks at it and he goes, oh, and he slams it shut. And he goes, oh man, um, well, I'm gonna have to do something that you're not gonna like. Not only once, I have to do it twice. So
Oh no.
it's gonna be painful. And I'm like, what in the world is going to happen? I'm starting to freak out. And he's like, drop your pants, man, pull it out. And, he punches my bore with the Q-tip. And of course, what are they doing? They're checking for STDs, right? So he,
Yeah.
I'm telling
I've
you, the
had to have
most
it done. Oh, I
pain.
know.
Oh
I
my
had it
God.
done by a corpsman as well, bro.
Oh, the
And I
worst,
had me
man.
on the top of my toes.
Oh,
You could
it's,
hear the squeak. With that long ass Q-tip, dude.
yeah, buddy. Oh man, so he does it. Of course, he does it twice, like you said, and I
Mm.
thought, okay, it's all over. I'm good, right? And he goes, all right, here's a cup. I need you to go in the head and piss in the cup. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So I go
I
in.
got sweaty palms right now from that, man.
He must have been waiting outside of the door because the second I started to urinate, the worst, like way worse than the other pain, like fire, man, like I was
Because it was
pissing
a dry
fire.
urethra.
Oh my God, dude. And I
Yeah.
screamed, I probably screamed like a little girl. Ah! And of course, what do I hear from him? My pain hurts, don't it? Ah! He's out there laughing, but
I'm
so that
laughing, dude, because I went through the exact same thing.
it is not pleasant,
Oh my gosh, dude. If anybody needs
One-
to to
One of the
learn
worst.
to strap it up in life,
Yeah.
go get that done, dude, and you'll never
You
unstrap
know,
your.
that might be something that they need to put into the sex ed classes. It would be like,
When you get
hey, this
like
is
in
what's going to happen
seventh
to
or
you.
eighth grade, it's like, boom, here's a poor bunch, guys. If you want to mess around, that's what
Yeah,
it's like. If
that's
you get some,
that's the pain you get. That
I
might,
had mine done for nothing too, by the way.
yeah,
Oh my,
yeah.
help me.
Yeah, mine turned out to be I had some sort of stone, so I just had to
Oh
pass the stone. Yeah,
shit.
and it did. It took about a week for it to pass, and they gave me some pain meds so I could actually shoot rifle and all that type of stuff. So it turned out all right. But those are some funny stories from boot camp. It was a good time. I learned a lot. I was very thankful. I met one of the. Well, I'll tell this real quick story. W- when they found out I was in the band. Uh, they cornered me in the whiskey locker, and I was the whiskey locker recruit, right? Uh, and so so crap, he cornered me. He's like, "Hey, you're gonna be in the band," and I was like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "All right, hold on, there's somebody who's gonna come talk to you." I was like, oh crap. So he goes across, gets another drill instructor that comes over, and he comes in and he's like, you're going to be in the band? You're going to be in the world's greatest fighting force to be in the band? Are you kidding me? Man, he, for 30 minutes, yelled at me, screamed at me. He was knocking stuff off. He's doing the drill instructor thing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst, right? So when it came time for, we're getting ready to graduate, that same drill instructor Staff Sergeant Villa at the time comes up to me and says, "Hey, you know why I gave you such a hard time about being in the band?" I was like, "I have no idea." And he goes, "Because I'm in the band." And I was like, "Oh my God, dude, I hate you so much right now."
Got
Like
him.
in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, I could just choke you."
That's such a
Uh,
Marine thing to do, though.
yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And I returned the favor many years later. It was good, but
So is the band an actual MOS, dude? Like, I
oh
mean,
yeah.
wow,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they have
So
a whole MOS, it's is the MOS geared to a certain instrument, or is it all you guys are all tailored under a certain
when
number?
I came in, it was by instrument. So I
Gotcha,
came in as a 5563, which was a percussionist. So you had an MOS number for every single instrument, and to include like the drum major, the conductor, it basically everybody in the unit had a different designator.
dude.
Now they have changed it, and it's all one MOS. So it's the 5500 or 5524 is basic musician. And then you get promoted to like drum major, you pick up a different MOS and then stuff like that, but only the leadership key points at that time.
Dude, I gotta imagine that had to be one hell of an experience to play with such an elite group. Honestly, the Marine Corps
It
band, dude, is y- trained. I mean, if anybody's ever seen the Marine Corps band or listened to the Marine Corps band, it is a treat, man.
Yeah, now it was good when I came in, and we did some incredible stuff. But the musicians nowadays are so much better than when I first came in. I mean, they are incredible musicians. Some of them they get out and they're out there gigging with famous people all the time now. I
Right.
mean, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, it's been a great experience. I'll say that. So after boot camp, I got to go to MCT and spent a couple weeks there. I didn't have anything special out of MCT, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It was just hike around, shoot
Another
some
iteration
guns.
of boot camp, but
Yeah,
not as so recruitish. You
yeah,
were treated like shit, but more as a Marine.
yeah. You're still treated like shit. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it was good. Got to shoot the big guns. I enjoyed
Yeah.
doing that.
Oh yeah, the Mark 19, the fucking
Oh
M
yeah.
249 saw, the T23. Dude, yeah,
Yeah, buddy. You got to do some cool stuff.
yeah.
So it was fun. At that point, they sent me over to Virginia Beach, which is where the Naval School of Music is.
Wow.
So at that time, it was a Navy schoolhouse, and the Marine Corps, the Navy, and the Army all were in the same schoolhouse. So it was kind of unique. I had a Army percussion instructor. I had a Navy uh, instructor for like different ensembles, and then you have Marine instructors around. So, I mean, you got to see a good wide variety in that first MOS school, which was pretty cool. And I learned a lot of the different rank structure and how that worked and things like that. So that helped me out in my career. Now, my wife, because we were married, on my orders, said that she could go because it was a 7 month school. So anything over 6 months, your spouse can go, right? And when I showed up, I told the platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Chuck Eddie Owens was a platoon sergeant at that time, and I told him I was like, "Hey, my wife, she's gonna come out here," and he's like, "Yeah, they don't like it. They don't want you to do that." And I was like, I'm just telling you that it doesn't matter what you guys think. My wife is going to come out here. Like that's just the bottom line. She's going to.
Was she issued
And
to you? Her to
yeah,
you?
yeah, exactly. And he goes, "All right, don't change your mind. Say that exact thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he takes me in to see the CO, and I tell the CO the exact same thing. The CO starts yelling at me. He's like, "No, we're not going to do this," and blah, 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 blah. And this was like on a Tuesday or something, right? And finally, he gets to it. And he goes, "Okay, fine. You can have the weekend." He's like, "Where are you from?" I'm saying, "I'm from Oklahoma." He's like, "Okay, you have the weekend. You leave Friday after school, but you better be back here Monday."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Oh God, like how's that gonna work?" So, I come out, the platoon sergeant, hooked me up with a bunch of places to look for like rent houses, things of that nature. I found a house, or not a house, it was a an apartment, right? And then I flew out Friday after school. Got into Oklahoma late Friday night. They had already packed all our stuff in a U-Haul. So we jumped in the U-Haul Saturday morning and drove 24 hours straight. Got to Virginia, put everything in the house, returned the U-Haul, and then was back to the schoolhouse on Monday morning. It was that quick. And
Made it
it,
happen.
yeah, CO said be back. I was back. So I don't know if that was my first test or what, but I think
Good
I passed it.
Marine.
Yeah. But it was good. Am I going in and out?
Oh, you're good now. No, it was quick. We got a little bit of a pause.
Oh,
All
how's
right, we're back. Those little technical difficulties, and all right, brother.
sorry.
No,
Yeah,
you're good, man.
so the schoolhouse, I learned a lot of good stuff there, had a lot of fun, but then I got orders to my first duty station, the wonderful 29 Palms, California,
Mm.
out in the middle of nowhere.
Damn, doing
And
band out there, man. Shit.
yeah, buddy, I'm telling you. So they sent us out there, and they were like, "Oh man, it's such a small place, and it's just, you're gonna hate every minute of it." Of course, me and the wife are driving out there, and we come driving into the city of 29 Palms. Of course, you have to go through nothing to get there.
Right.
But we drove up, and what were one of the first things that we saw? There was a McDonald's. There were stoplights. There was shopping
Yeah,
centers.
big
There was
big
all
city
kinds of.
for you. You're like,
Yeah,
whoa.
I was in the big city. I was like, what are they talking about? This thing's awesome. So yeah, I got in the band there, which was a fantastic group of musicians. And we traveled all over the place, man. There's not a lot of units out in 29 Palms to support.
Yeah.
You got like tanks, Seventh Marines. You got the schoolhouse over there for radio and that type of stuff. Not a lot out there. Um, but we did ceremonies. We used to do Friday morning color ceremonies all the time. But we would travel constantly. I remember traveling from 29 Palms to Florida to cover jobs down there. We went to Canada. Did they call it a traveling tattoo. You know what a tattoo is? It's like a military type of showcase that's put together with different musicians and stuff from different countries and things like that.
Oh, nice.
So we did that and traveled through Canada I think we were gone like 2 weeks. I mean, we did a lot of cool things, did a lot of cool traveling, did a lot of performances down in Palm Springs, like full concert band, orchestra type concerts and things like that. I mean, it was really, really cool. One of the things that I got to do there was play drum set um, for the jazz band. So I was not good at playing drum set when it come to that style of music. Like I just didn't understand it. And it was one of my first weeks there, and they threw me in right away and it's like, here you go. And I sat down to play, and the gunny who was in charge, he was like, nah, you get out, go stand by my office door. And I'm like, oh my God, like my first rehearsal with him, I'm getting kicked out. He makes me stand there. So he comes in later after the rehearsal, and he basically tells me, he's like, well, we're gonna teach you what jazz music is. And I'm like, okay. So he pulls out this binder of CDs that was about this thick, and he plops it open, and he says, we're gonna start in the 50s. And I'm like, okay. So he pulls out like 10 CDs, and he hands them to me. He's like, if I hear you listening to any other music other than this jazz music, it's your ass. And I was like, aye, aye, Gunny. So I took them, and that's what we did. I would listen to that music
That's wild.
constantly,
That's crazy.
and because of that, I got used to hearing it, and and I got better at it over time, and was able to be the drummer for the big band,
Just
and
just goes to show you, no matter what MOS you are, there's a way to fuck with someone. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely.
uh,
But yeah, I mean, it was good. I learned a lot there. I was only there for 2 years. Now, when I was there, 9/11 happened. Uh,
oh yeah,
So yeah, so I was in I was actually at home in bed. I think we had just gotten back from a trip. And so I can't remember if we had the day off or they were letting us come in late or something like that. But we got a phone call from my sister-in-law, and she was telling my wife what was going on, and my wife was relaying the message, and I thought she was just messing with me, and I was like, oh, yeah, trying to get me up or something, I don't know. But yeah, sure enough, come to find out, 9/11 happened, and I ended up going into work, and then from there things changed a little bit. I wouldn't say a lot. I mean, we still went out and did performances, we were still traveling. We were a little more aware of our surroundings at that point in time. So from that aspect, things did change. But yeah, still traveled around. And
that's
then
crazy, dude. I would have almost been. I mean, I showed up to 29 Palms for one day. I was almost supposed to be have my orders there. They messed up, so that was
really, that's
yeah.
right.
It was around August 2000 time frame. Um, and thank God, like, because it was hot as shit there, bro. I was like,
Yeah, man.
they sent me to
Yeah,
Camp
that
Pendleton, so I mean, in
it's
comparison,
it's
I was in
better.
a way better spot.
Way better, yeah. But yeah, my wife, she was with me, of course, and she wanted to finish her degree, which would have taken like 2 years, 2 additional years in California, uh, because not all of her stuff transferred. So
Yeah,
she was like, well, I want to go back home because I can finish it in a year. And so in order to do that, I got orders to Okinawa for a year. And she went back to Oklahoma. I flew out to Okinawa and did a 1 year unaccompanied tour out there, which again, with the band, it's unique because you're kind of the ambassador for, the United States of America at that point. Everywhere you go, you're performing out in town, and you're the face of not just the Marine Corps, but you're the face of the United States at that point.
yeah, they
So
definitely are probably hardcore about the standards there.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, when you talk about standards, man, uniform had to be immaculate, like those types. I mean, it
Haircut,
was.
always
Oh
shaved.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about all that stuff, man. But it was a good experience. I got to play with a lot of Japanese, like the Japanese Army Self Defense Force Band or something like that. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but we got to perform with them.
wow.
We did a gig. We went up to mainland Japan, and we were doing a tour through their schools, and we actually ended up doing oh man, what was it? I guess we were just performing and doing shows for these different schools. We're talking like junior high ish to high school, right? And then we would sit and we would play with their band and do different things. But come to find out, this was the first time that they had allowed uniformed members from a different country into their schools. And we got to do that. And we probably went to about 10 or 12 different schools while we were there. And the whole thing was sponsored by Sapporo beer.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty interesting because every time after every single gig, they had Sapporo beer for us right after we performed, and we're still hanging out
Oh
at the
shit.
with
They
the kids
done
and
they
stuff.
done messed up now, bro.
Yeah, yeah. It was a fun trip. I'll put it that way. At the end, they actually put us over to the Sapporo Beer Factory. So they gave us a tour. We got to go through, see how they made the beer, did some beer tastings, and then they gave us a big barbecue and all the beer we could drink. And let's just say there was a lot of intoxicated individuals at that point in time. So, but it was
No
a good
doubt.
time. Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's kind of my memories of Okinawa. I'll share one really cool ceremony that we did, and it was for, I believe it was recon, and I'm not 100% on this, but it was it had to have been recon, right? But we show up, and it's a small parade field, and it was right next to the ocean, the water. So we can, we did what we always do. We marched out, did the pre-ceremony, then we went back to what we call the chute, which is on the far side of the parade deck, because we got to march everybody on. But there were no troops, like nowhere. And they started the ceremony like normal, sound attention. They sounded attention. They said sound adjutant's call, and we started the music, right? And all of a sudden, people started just coming from everywhere. There were guys that came out of the ocean. They'd been scuba diving, came out of the ocean with all their gear on, their rifles, all that stuff. They would set their stuff down and they would come up and they would get in formation. And there were guys in bushes right next to the reviewing area that people didn't even know they were there. And they stood up out of these bushes and went and got in formation. It was the coolest
That's
like
awesome.
entrance to a ceremony I've ever seen, man. It was crazy. It was really
That
cool
is
though.
cool. That is super
Yeah.
cool.
I leave it to
Wow.
Recon to come up with some crazy stuff like that.
No
But
kidding, man. Well, that
yeah,
sounds like
yeah.
a lot of cool experiences though, bro. Like,
Oh yeah.
interacting with different, branches, foreigners. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's one hell of an experience, dude. So, um, wow.
Yeah, it
And I
was a good
haven't got to
time.
hear too much of anybody in the Marine Corps band's experience. So I love that I got to hear this because a
Yeah,
different
man.
perspective, and I've always, man, like I said, anytime you ever have the Marine Corps band come and play, like it just gives you
Yeah.
chills, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we get jaded every now and again with it. It
yeah, because
becomes,
you guys
just
is
like
just a
anything.
day in, day out, man. I'm
Yeah,
sure
it's a
it's just
job,
like
man.
anything else, right?
Yeah.
You guys don't
Uh,
appreciate it as much as the listeners, I'm sure.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's hard to capture some of the moments, because you do it so often, and you see so many, sometimes famous people. You see so many general officers. You see so many, senior enlisted. It's constant, because
Yeah,
everybody, all the senior guys are going to the ceremonies, so you kind of get, I don't want to say jaded necessarily, but you get used to it, right? And
mhm,
it loses its luster the longer you do it, type of thing. but
I bet.
but it's interesting for sure. um so from Okinawa, I went back to the schoolhouse for the ceremonial conductor drum major course. So I was learning how to be a drum major at that point. And that was a 6-month school. And then from there, they gave me orders to First Marine Division to be in the band there.
Damn.
So I showed up to First Marine Division, and they had gone into the initial push into Iraq, and they
Yeah.
had just gotten back when I checked in. In fact,
Was
they
it
were
like Camp
still.
Horno area or
No,
where
it
was
was well, at that point the band was on main side. So
main side? Okay.
you remember where the theater was.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
went
What year is this
going
what year is this?
to, wow, what was that? 2003-ish time frame?
So
I
yeah,
think.
that's when I got we crossed paths.
Yeah, man.
There it is. I was actually I got deployed in 2003 as well because I was part of First Marine Headquarters Group.
Now,
So
you weren't in the initial push though, right?
yes, I was
Oh,
part
you
of
were.
the yes. I went over there January of 2003 before it even
Okay.
started.
So you came
Yeah,
back around June, July timeframe?
July.
July. Okay.
June. Yeah, end
Yeah.
of June. End of June. It was end of June because that's right. 4th of July was popping, and
Yeah.
I kind of had a little bit of some 4th of July issues. Uh,
I love it.
I just came back
Uh,
from booms and bangs that were real, like
yeah, yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, I showed up there. It had to have been around July timeframe. So that's when, and they were on their post deployment leave at that point. So they had
so it
come
was kind of
back.
dead it was a lot, Camp Pendleton was way different when you showed up
Oh yeah.
because a lot of people were deployed, so you had a lot of skeleton crews left behind. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
quite the Camp Pendleton
Yeah.
that we most of us knew.
Yeah, very true. And so I was worried, right? Checking into a unit. These guys are war dogs, right? They've
Yeah.
been there, they've seen it, they've done it. And here I am, I'm a sergeant checking in. I ain't done jack squat. I just played my instrument. That's it. And so it was a little intimidating walking into the door. But I gotta say, the individuals, the Marines that were there, didn't even think twice, man. They brought me in, all the sergeants brought me in, and they were like, "Hey, man, it is what it is. You just weren't here." And they took me under their wing, and then we just pushed forward and started doing performances, and like a things were back to normal at that point,
Right.
for a band. And then several months after I got there, we got word that, hey, we're going back. And so we started prepping for the going back. And well, them going back, me going for my first time. But and then we went to ended up deploying, going to Ramadi, Iraq, which was very humbling for
Right.
me. But a good experience. I'm glad I got to do it. Um, I sometimes wish I hadn't, but it is what it is. That's the way it goes, I suppose. But yeah, overall, that was
Everlasting memories.
yeah, for sure. Now, did you go back over for that second one?
Nope. I My EAS time was already getting out, and they had
Okay.
lifted. There was no more stop loss or nothing crazy. So
Yeah.
when I went back home, I actually went home early because of a Red Cross message. I was supposed to
Oh,
be out there
yeah.
additional several more months. But so when I went home on the Red Cross message, I think for them, they were thinking it's probably cheaper to keep me home because they're just going to have to fly me back right away, anyways, because I was getting ready to get out. So,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they didn't hold me back.
Yeah, that second time we went to Kuwait first, and then we staged, and the entire division was there. And so we did a convoy of, I don't know, it had to have been 200 plus vehicles, maybe even 300 vehicles, from Kuwait all the way up to well, we ended up going to Ramadi, and what is now was then at that point changed the name to Camp Blue Diamond, which is where the CG was. And for those that don't know, when a band deploys in the Marine Corps, they become a heavy weapons platoon. And so they do security for wherever the commanding general is. So, for example, Camp Blue Diamond, which is where his headquarters was, we did security for that base. And then they've done convoy security, but typically, the CG is going to have his own personal detachment that's with him that are infantry guys. You want infantry doing mostly infantry tasks, in
Right.
my opinion. But when it comes to security around the base and stuff like that, that's something that any Marine can handle. Uh, well, you would think any Marine
Or
can
that's our
handle.
primary MOS, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I became the sergeant of the guard, and
Wow.
one of my main jobs that I did was, of course, posting and relieving people as they were coming on and off post. But if we got mortar attacked, they taught us how to do a back azimuth, look at the impact, see the direction, that stuff, shoot a back azimuth. And the goal was mortar hits, we shoot a back azimuth. The guys in the watchtowers would see where the uh, I
Impact,
guess the not the impact, but
back
the
spray or
round.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, the X-ray. Yeah, so they'd be able to see that and point a direction. We'd give them a back azimuth, and then they would call that over to the artillery, which was actually an army unit at the time, I think,
Hmm.
and then they would fire back on that position.
Oh shit,
So,
that's awesome.
but we were getting mortared constantly. I mean, it was. I swear to God, I felt like it was nonstop. It's
So
pretty
that's pretty
wild.
unique too, man. Is you got to experience probably something a lot of Marine Corps band members don't experience, and that's being deployed as
Yeah.
being in the Marine Corps band. You know what I mean? So what a unique experience for yourself as well, because not a lot of guys probably even get to experience that. And then when I imagine when you go in and you're primarily wanting to play your instrument and stuff, you have no thought like, oh yeah, I'm gonna end up in the war
Yeah.
zone, you know?
Yeah. That's the to be honest, that's the furthest thing from your mind. You're like, there's no way they're
Yeah,
sending the band. I mean, come on.
right.
But you look at the history of bands and combat, man, it goes all the way back to the beginning, man. There's
Yeah,
always been a drummer,
right.
somebody playing a bugle.
Yeah,
There's all kinds of stuff like that.
sure.
To litter bearers, they did that in the war wars. They did become heavy machine gunners as well during that time frame. So it just kind of depends, man. Every war, there's been musicians there. And typically, at least in the Marine Corps, they're not there to play instruments. In fact, we
Right.
put our instruments down and only picked them up like twice. And the rest of the time, we were doing combat operations.
Yep.
So good
Wow. So
experience.
yeah, man. So once you did your deployments and stuff, when did you start to look like when you were getting out? Did you was your intention always to do four and get out, or
No, at this point, hey, I'm going to be in for the long haul is basically where I was at this point. And I picked up when we came back, I picked up the drum major job. So then I'm leading the band, and I ended up going down to MCRD San Diego. Uh, I was the drum major there. I got to go over and do detachment gunny stuff for a while. And then shortly after that, I was there for 2 years, and then I became a drill instructor and did time as a drill instructor there on the
damn?
depot. Yeah.
Sheesh.
So did 3 years. I always tell people doing drill instructor duty was the best, worst 3 years of my life. Uh, so it was very
You had to do boot
rewarding.
camp a lot of times.
Oh yeah, and there was a lot of hat hazing going on at that point in time. So it didn't make it easy. I'll put it that way. And
Yeah.
I struggled my first 2 cycles, but once I figured it out, I was good. I did get to work at the swim tank. So I was a staff NCOIC at the swim tank because by then I was pinning on gunny. Uh, so which was pretty cool. I'm the staff NCOIC of the swim tank, and the working hours was like 08 to 10, to usually around noon, and then everybody would leave. Because of my position, I had to hang out and go to meetings and all that type of stuff. But the majority of them, man, they busted out early, which is the exact opposite of most drill instructors that are there. They're 24/7, basically what it ends up being.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good experience. I'm glad I did it. I would never do it again if you asked me to. That's one thing I'm like, no, I'm good.
Right.
I I was older when I came in, and by the time I made it to be a drill instructor, I was already older, and I struggled keeping up. I mean, it was tough, but
That's
it
wild.
was a good experience though. And then from there, I ended up going to Second Marine Division with the band out there, and that was a fun experience. Got to go to a lot of cool places. Uh, Ended up we did got to go to Bellow Wood, perform there.
Damn.
Um, that was really, really cool. And I didn't mention when I was in Okinawa, we got to go perform on Iwo Jima,
Wow.
on top of Mount Suribachi. I mean, it was really cool. But yeah, I got to go to Bellow Wood. I got to drink from the Devil Dog Fountain. Did the performance there. Performed in Paris. several different places where Napoleon was entombed. We got to perform there. I mean, there's some really cool things we got to do. And then from there, we went to London and got to perform for the 350th anniversary for the Royal Marines.
Damn.
So they had a big ceremony there. In fact, uh, the person that took the was the what do you call it? The took the dais or was the guy senior guy was the Queen's husband, who is now the king. So I got pictures of me marching by him, saluting him. And it was like the commandant of the U.S. Marine Corps, the commandant of the British Marine Corps, and then the Netherlands Marine Corps were all there as well. And I
Wow.
remember standing out on the parade field and looking up, and the Queen, although she wasn't in the ceremony, but she was watching it. There's a window up behind it, and she was looking out the window watching, and is like, "That's cool. That's the Queen's husband. The Queen is right there." I was like, "Man, this is crazy." It's just like one of those surreal moments, you know. It
Yeah.
was cool though.
That's crazy, man. What a hell of an experience, dude. My gosh.
Yeah, yeah,
So how many
yeah.
years in total did you do before you
It's
decided?
25, man.
Damn, 25. What'd you
Yeah,
end up getting
yeah.
out as?
Master Gunny.
Master Guns.
Yeah,
Sheesh.
yeah,
Wow. That's a hell of
yeah.
an
I
hell of
I
a
never thought
ride,
I'd
bro.
make it that far, but yeah, it
25.
was it was good. It was good, you know.
Yeah.
I can't complain. I'll just real quick go through the rest of the places I went. I went from Lejeune up to the schoolhouse to be the instructor as a drum major instructor.
Shit.
Then I picked up Mass Sergeant, went from there to First Marine Division again, where I was the senior enlisted, and then I did acting officer in charge there for a year. And then from there, I went back to the schoolhouse in Virginia Beach as the senior enlisted when I got promoted to Master Guns. So,
Wow. Damn, dude.
yeah,
What a
it
career.
was good. And it was
Sheesh.
time for me to go. I'll be
Yeah, I
honest, it
guess
was
you
time.
weren't shooting for the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps type stuff, man. I
No, no, no. Being a Master
mean,
Guns is probably one of the best ranks. I'd say next to Master Guns is probably Gunny.
yeah,
Uh, but being a Master Guns is nothing like it. You basically get to say what you think, and
that's wild.
not every rank gets to do that.
Yeah. No kidding, man. My gosh. All right,
Yeah.
well, shoot. We'll go ahead and take a quick break, and then when we get back, we'll kind of talk about how it was after retirement, man. I mean,
Okay.
25 years of dedicating your life to the Marine Corps. I imagine transitioning out was, quite an experience. So when we
Oh
come
yeah.
back, we'll talk about that. So we'll
Sounds
be
good.
right back.
Welcome to Sick Call with Doc, a podcast dedicated to eradicating veteran suicide. With 22 veterans lost every day, we believe that's 22 too many. Join us as we bring you inspiring stories, heartfelt conversations, and a community that cares. Because no matter what, you are not alone. We were there for you then, and we're here for you now. Follow, like, and share our mission. Together, we can make a difference. Inspiring hope, saving lives.
All right. So yeah, if you guys ever get a chance, that's one of the shows that I produce at Call with Doc. It is a great show, very educational on alternative methods for medicating yourself and things like that. So great educational show. But all right, man, let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit, and we'll talk about retirement life, man. You know what?
Yeah.
How retirement life's treating you?
Well, I want to talk about the transition if you're okay with that a little
Yeah.
bit.
No, for sure. Yep.
So, as you're leading up to, like, say, a year out, getting ready to get out, everyone says, "Hey, go to medical. Make sure that you get everything documented. Do this, do that." And I thought I was, to be honest with you, because I was going to medical pretty regular. I was making sure that all the stuff was in there. Uh, and then I finally, it came time for retirement. And of course, at this point, I'm approaching. I'm like, well, what am I going to do when I get out? And my wife always said, I don't want you to work when you get out.
Yeah.
Which, hey, I'm all for not having to work.
Hell yeah.
So
Who's gonna fight that?
exactly. Uh, but as I'm approaching, I was talking to the wife about, well, what am I going to do? And we got on the topic of, I wrote a book, The Lost Art of Fishing Stories, where I talk about what I call the lost arts, which can be anything, changing a car tire, for example, or,
Sure.
fly fishing, or, anything that can get lost over time. and I saying that how like her dad was a Korean War vet as well in the Army, and I was like, our dads, like their stories are gone forever. Like we'll never know every ins and outs of their stories. So I started thinking, how can I, how can I do this and record people's stories? And of course, that's when, the podcast idea came up, and I was like, well, I'll try it. And so
What
I
year is
started
this right
doing,
here?
this is 2000, let's see, I retired last year, 24. So it's the end of 23, uh,
Oh
whenever
gosh,
I
so
was
you're
approaching
still
retirement.
kind of
Oh yeah.
transitioning out. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh
you're
yeah,
still
man.
fresh, man.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was that, like coming up. I retired February of 24, right? So coming up to that, I started doing podcasts. I was doing like, once. I think I started out doing once every other week, and then okay, once a week, and then it's since then it has just slowly built and built and built. Now I'm doing 5 episodes a week, Monday through Friday, and telling stories. I try to highlight veteran organizations, those types of things. Many of the same stuff that you do, but and I don't know. I love it. It's given me a sense of purpose in retirement, and that is probably one of the things that kind of saved me a little bit when you're talking about people have a hard time in that transition, especially if those guys have been in as long as I was, right?
Oh
25 years.
yeah,
That's all you
dude.
know,
Because I
you
mean,
know?
we're brainwashed within 4 years. 25
Yeah.
years, you are a
I
brainwasher. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
So
I like that. A brainwasher. But yeah,
uh,
you're right. And, I, I can understand how people can get to very negative places, right?
right.
I don't fit in, right? And I still feel that way sometimes. I don't fit in.
Being a Marine
And,
could be a very lonely world. I've said that before. I mean, and
yeah,
only a very few can get it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I've, and I always talk about veteran suicide toward the end of my podcast, but, and I honestly can see how people get to that point. My transition was not perfect. I struggled with, you know, my relationship with my wife has changed, and not necessarily for the better. And you know, I, I think our communication has not been as good, and
a lot
part
more
of that
time
is,
together, huh?
yeah, well, yeah, but part of it is when I got out, we bought a motorhome and we've been traveling.
So
So
very
I have
close, close
two
encounters.
kids. Yeah, two kids, me and the wife, in this motorhome, and
It's a
we
test.
used to be able to, hey, we'll go to another room and have a conversation, or we'll go do something, and whereas now it's not necessarily like that. The kids are always there, they're always listening, and so our relationship has struggled, and I'm at a point now where I'm still trying to figure out how can I make that better for me and the wife, and I'm working towards it. And I've dealt with my battle of depression throughout the whole thing. And then the waiting on, well, what am I going to get for your VA, right? What percentage am I going to get? And I ended up with 90 starting out, and I thought, wow, surely I'll get close to 100, which I did, was 90. And I just recently ended up at 100%. So I sent something back in and was able to get that. So uh, making sure that you put everything down and accurate the first time is important. And there are things you don't think about, like for me, acid reflux, right?
Oh, I know. Sleep
What do you do?
apnea.
Yeah, what do you do with acid reflux? I just went and bought something and, over the counter, Zantac or
Right. Same.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I never went to medical and said, hey, look, I have this issue. So it's things like that. My headaches, like I get headaches all the time. I never went in and consistently said, hey, I get headaches all the time. I
Right.
Every time I've gone in for a headache, hey, here's some medication, and I'm okay. Well, cool. That's ibuprofen. I'll just take some of that. Things like that. I didn't put down, what I probably should have, and it wasn't in my record. So that's the importance of making sure that you put every single thing down, even if you think it's not important. Put it down,
Absolutely.
because that is a percentage somewhere somehow, and it all adds up eventually. So that's probably my biggest thing with that. But Yeah, the transition isn't easy. You would think for a guy like me, 25 years, I got my happy family. We're traveling around. We're going from state to state, just enjoying life. You would think that things would be all hunky dory, and it's not always. You know, you try to stay positive. Like, anytime somebody asks, "Hey, how's retirement?" "Oh, I love it. It's great. It's fantastic." And you try to stay upbeat and stuff like that. Of course, like most veterans, what do? We push the the bad thoughts away, or
Well, sometimes
that type of stuff.
retirement isn't as easy as everybody thinks, right? Too,
Yeah,
because when you go to work and you have all these things that keep you busy, busy, busy,
yeah,
it's a different world because you have, in the Marine Corps, we always have a place to go. We always
hmm
have a formation to be at. Somewhere to
very
check
true.
into. When you get out, all of a sudden, you don't have that structure like you used to, and now you have a lot more free time. I'm sure that it's being used in other directions, but there's still that level of, man, you didn't have that busy that kept you
Yeah,
kind of your mind busy, right?
yeah,
So now you have a
absolutely.
lot more time to think about shit and get in your head
Oh my God, yeah.
and spool some things up. I mean, we do a good job messing ourselves up,
That is a
right?
true
I
statement.
mean,
Yeah.
and I got to imagine though, because for me too, man. You said it earlier. Podcasting has been very healing. I think that a lot of us are starting to realize that as we got into it. I never even knew that was going to be part of the process.
Yeah, I agree
I
with
had
that.
no clue that when I was podcasting, it was going to be a healing journey as well.
hmm
But you learn so much from others after you start talking to people and
Yeah.
hearing things as well, like the things that they've experienced. And you're like, damn, dude, I can relate. Did I go exactly through that? No, but I went through my own version of it,
Yeah, something
you know?
similar.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So it's good, man.
that's something that overdoing the podcast and meeting people and networking and things like that, I've come to realize that we all go through a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
There's only so many things that are going to happen under the sun. Not a whole lot of new things pop up, right? So we repeat and repeat, and everybody's doing the same type of stuff, maybe a little different spin on it, but every day while I'm in the Marine Corps, I could always go in and there was somebody there I could bitch, moan, and complain to. I could
Sure.
vent to.
Yeah.
I could do those,
Right.
whereas now I don't have that. I don't
Yeah.
have that network of individuals, and you think to yourself, well, I'll just call the guys that I served with. Well, those guys are busy dealing with their own stuff. They'll sit and talk to you, but they're only going to talk to you for so long because, it's like, hey, man, I got shit to do. So, you got to find somebody somewhere to be able to have that network, right? Which is kind of where I fell into like the Marine Corps League.
Yeah.
I what
Let's talk
I've
about that.
always seen the Marine Corps League, being in the band and you travel places, I used to call them the killer tomatoes because they wore the red jackets and the red hats, right?
Look at this
Uh,
guy.
so, so there it is. There it is.
Hey, he's got the red hat himself.
That's right. So,
Uh,
that's what I always knew him as. And but I never really put two and two together. Like how important is having an organization to be able to go to and reconnect with that brotherhood that you had while you
that
were in.
camaraderie. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is something that I've missed. Oh my, yeah, completely. Thank God I've got this podcast, to be honest with you, man. If I didn't have this, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. I'd be
Right.
super hardcore
Definitely
struggling.
gives you a sense of purpose too, right? Like having the
Yeah.
show and reaching out. And because for you, man, how many interviews you up to now?
Oh shoot, 377, 378 right now.
That-
Today's, I think, something like that.
That's a lot, dude. And I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot of stories you're putting out there, brother. Like, you're capturing them. I mean, that's a workhorse right there. Because
Yeah.
would you start? You said 2024 is when you started.
Well, the end of 2023, I think it was December 2023 when I
Okay,
actually
yeah. So
started
I mean,
recording.
yeah, it sounds like you're about 11 months
Yeah.
after me, and you're already around 200 more interviews than me. So I put out a lot of
Well,
episodes, different things, but damn,
oh
dude, that's a
yeah,
lot of interviewing. So I mean, that's a lot of people you're contacting and trying to
absolutely.
coordinate with. So
Like, and it gives me a sense of purpose. And I think for veterans, having a sense of purpose is probably the biggest thing to combat
sure,
uh, veteran suicide.
getting in your
You
head
know,
too much, right?
yes, having a sense of purpose, and then on top of that, camaraderie,
Sure,
because we miss that so much, and that's where I have found that the veteran service organizations, it doesn't have to be the Marine Corps League,
yeah.
that's just the one that I represent, as it's
There's
an ambassador for them.
VFWs. There's
Yeah,
the
the
Moose
Purple Heart,
Lodges.
the Order of the
Yeah,
Purple Heart, Moose Lodge,
right.
like all those types of things. And you really think about like our fathers, right? Where did they go to get mentorship? Where did they go to find these things? A lot of them went to the Moose Lodge. A lot of them went to organizations like that, and that's where they found that I guess father to son type of relationship, if you will, right? Kind
Well,
of
the
like the
Marine
Marine Corps.
Corps was found in the tavern, so I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It's a good point. But that's important. And I think that veterans need to recognize that, need to be able to say, I've got to reach out to somebody. I've got to talk to somebody. And as much as talking on the phone, as much as talking like here, like we are right now, it's good. But nothing beats I'm in person in front of somebody, shaking their hand, having that conversation. Nothing beats that.
sure.
Nothing. And that's where those veteran service organizations come into play. And that's just at the base foundation of what those organizations do, right?
Right.
Uh, they're like the Marine Corps League is the only Marine Corps veteran service organization, like congressional type of thing, right? So the commandant for the Marine Corps League goes to meetings with the President of the United States. Same
Wow.
thing with
Yeah.
the American Legion, the VFW, all these big ones, the DAV. These organizations are going to Congress. They're I almost said being interviewed by Congress. That's not what I was looking for. Testifying. They're testifying in front of Congress about veteran.
Advocates.
Yeah, being an advocate, and these things are huge. And these are the types of things that I think veterans need to start getting more involved with. Uh, if nothing else, to one, just give you something to do, and then two, we have to look and try to do focus outboard. Let's focus on helping other people, because that's what we did as Marines,
Yep.
right? Our job was to help others. Our
Yep.
job wasn't to focus on me. Like,
Right.
focusing on me was never the thing. It was focusing outboard and focusing and helping other people and doing for them and
And that's
making
a
them
good
better.
thing. That's a good thing to
Yeah.
point out too, because I think a lot of us struggle because that's a hard part for us is that we don't know how to be our own fans, and we don't know how to worry, like take care of ourselves, because we've always been taught to take care of the person to our left and our right. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, keep your socks dry and things and hydrated. That's about the self-care that they want you to have. But that's I think the extent of where a lot of us had it. But yeah. Oh, might have paused up. There you go. All right, we're back. A little bug. But yeah, man, that's one thing, I think for us trained,
Yeah. And that's where I lost, I think, a sense of purpose. For me personally, is I was always the guy that took care of things.
Right.
That was just me. I would always walk around and, what's the issue? What's the problem? Let me solve it. Let me
Sure.
help point you in the right direction. Let me counsel you. And now I got my two daughters. And I counsel them, and I ain't counseling my wife. I can tell you that. So,
Yeah. We
but
know that life.
yeah. So that big loss for me, and that's one of the things that I've struggled with. Now, there are those that will reach out and ask questions and say, "Hey, can you help me through this or whatever?" That still happens to guys that have gotten out,
Right.
that I've talked to, or guys that are still reach out to me and talk to me from time to time. which makes you feel good. You're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Still looking for some guidance. Yep.
yeah. But you don't have that. And I think getting involved in those veteran service organizations is a way to get that.
Right.
It's not
Well,
going
that's
to
one of
be
the good
exactly
things
the
too about
same.
these podcast shows, bro, is that we're able to get a lot of these stories and the way things look like for them, their experiences, what was
Yeah,
hard, and then everybody can start feeling more comfortable about talking about it, not feeling so like out of place, right?
true.
I mean, because that's the thing I think for a lot of us is just we don't feel like we relate to anybody. There's no relation, but the more we can start putting it out there, like, and they're like, oh, there's some guys like me. I love that.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
just got to put it out there, and that's what I think we're all trying to do, right? Just give that vessel.
absolutely, yeah. And that's tough. If I'm the guy and I don't listen to podcasts, I don't talk to those guys, and I'm just kind of doing my thing. I go to work, I come back, and you start getting in your own head, and then you just start spiraling, and reaching out for help is not easy. Uh, I think we found that in the Marine Corps. A lot of times reaching out for help, it's like you're being weak. And I'll tell you, I think it's the opposite. I think if you're reaching out for help, you're strong.
Right.
You're
We
you're showing
definitely
yourself.
we definitely got to get to that level. And I think we're starting to get there more, right? By, like
Yeah.
I said, by the more people are starting to talk, and it's okay to not be okay, things of
Mm-hmm.
that nature, instead of that, hey, take a straw and suck it up. Because there's a level in our life that we got to kind of have that toughness too, right? Especially while you're in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
But when you get out, the civilian world isn't so receptive to a lot of our training and our ways, because we're very black and white. In the civilian world,
Yeah.
there's a lot of gray area,
A
and
lot.
we're not, and we're not used to that foreign land, right? We
Yeah.
hate gray areas, most of
Absolutely.
us, and
Yeah.
that about drives the shit out of us, because someone will be out there talking, and you're just like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? And to them, we see it so like, that's crazy, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
when someone's like, well, that's not so bad, or something like that, we're like, fuck that shit, man. That is outrageous.
It's true though. And
Yeah,
it's a completely different world,
it is.
You wouldn't think it is, that it's that big of a difference, but it's at every level. I think if you look back, like you got out, you were a sergeant, right?
Well, I was actually a corporal. I picked up sergeant while I was out, because I think they tried to get me back in, but so I say I got out as a sergeant, but I
Oh, there you go.
actually,
Yeah.
I mean, I never got to hear anybody call me Sergeant Roof, so
Oh, I
fucking,
see. Okay.
you know.
Well, Sergeant Roof.
Oh, hell yeah, bro.
Yeah.
There it is.
So getting out after your first enlistment, sergeant, getting out, and typically most people are getting out as an NCO. We'll say that.
Yeah.
And as you're getting out, you are doing leadership, at least in the Marine Corps, right? You're
Sure.
a leader. And now you're out, you're trying to figure your way out into life, and there are people that are probably your same age that are further along than you, and you're like, man, like, that guy's a turd. Why has he got it? And it's because you've done something else,
Right. It's
which
such a reset for a lot of us getting out, and I couldn't have imagined if you were to try to get out as, during your, like, say you got out after 4 years, you're in the Marine Corps band, bro. There's not a lot of jobs that are going to fucking be
Absolutely.
like where you're going to go make a lot of money,
Yeah.
as Marine Corps band, so
Yeah.
like, that's the hard part is a lot of what we do in the military doesn't get translated or even recognized out on the civilian road. Even if you were an NCO, they're like, oh, that's just grand, cool. Now you're just Joe Schmo over here. We need you to go clean the toilets. How about that?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
you're just like, oh shit,
Yeah,
and like you said, and imagine the dudes that try to go after 20 years that are a staff NCO, gunny, staff sergeant, something to that level. Now they go into the civilian world, and that's, once again, that's cool, gunny. Go sit over there in the cube,
sit in the corner and color.
Here's some crayons for you. Don't eat them all.
But And there are plenty of businesses out there that cater to military and things like that, which is
Sure.
fantastic,
Yes.
and help with that transition and things. But there are many places that you go that are not real helpful in that. And having a place to be able to go to say, hey, this isn't working for me, or just to go get advice from somebody that's been there and done that, that has spent 20 years in and was able to come out successful. Being able to pick their brain, and ask those questions, very important. Now there's great stuff online nowadays, where you could go and they have meetings and different things where you can network and over Zoom and different things like that. Uh, which is fantastic for all the young guys that like to do those types of things. Uh, but like I said, meeting people in person, you can't beat it. That I encourage anybody to go out to a veteran service organization, sign up. Uh, it Go to the meetings. Don't just sign up. Go to the meetings and talk to people. That's the difference. If you're just a member and you say I'm a member and you don't do anything with it, it doesn't help you.
Right. Yeah, you got to go find that. That's once again, you're kind of getting back into that brother sister, that relationship that you once had, and you're able to feel kind of in place again, not so out of place,
Yeah.
right? And so I imagine it's a great thing. Um, yeah, because I myself, I haven't looked into any of those kind of type of things. And I probably need to go look more into it. You always get the stigma of the VFWs or this, So for me, I probably need to go in there myself and look at it. I'm
Yeah.
more of I do get myself kind of stuck in my home and doing this podcast stuff, but I do think I got to get myself more in that community level.
Yeah.
There's something I think I lack that I miss, because when I go out to Nebraska to Hero Stock and I'm around all these people, I don't even want to go home. So
Yeah.
it's just that fun. But dude, AJ, is there anything else that you want to share, brother? Like, about your experiences, what you got going on? I mean, this has been a hell of a time, man. And I got to learn a lot. And, you did a 25-year stint, dude. That's a
It was a long
long
time.
time to be in the Marine Corps. I don't think people have the fucking slightest idea, only a few of us get it, but 25 years, brother, gosh, damn. I mean, impressive.
It had its ups and downs. I'll be honest with you. It had its ups and downs, but overall, I wouldn't have changed it. It was a good career, and I loved every minute of it. So,
Well,
but yeah,
Master Guns, I appreciate you and everything you've done for us, and you can continue to do for us. Everybody out there, make sure you guys go give The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Where's all the places that they can listen to that or capture you?
Yeah, you can. Well, I'm on all social media platforms, and I'm always every episode I go on and I'll put a link to it. But you could go to my website. It's thelostart.podbean.com. You can go check it out. All the episodes are there. You can listen through it through Podbean, or you can go to any of the streaming services, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, iHeartRadio, any of those things. They're all there. Episodes Monday through Friday. Usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have a veteran coming on to tell their stories. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have what I call fireside chats, where I have different veterans come on and we talk about veteran topics, or I'm either highlighting a veteran organization. So if there's anybody out there that wants to come on and highlight their veteran organization or veteran business or anything like that, I'm more than happy to have you come on and tell your story and highlight those things.
Oh, outstanding, brother. And like I said, yeah, you're a workhorse when it comes to this podcast. I thought I was doing a lot in the podcast too, but you're busy with it, brother. And I know how much work goes into this stuff. Sometimes people make it look easy. You're one of them as well. It was a pleasure being on your show, and it's an absolute pleasure having you on my show, bro. And you know how
Absolutely,
it
man.
is. We definitely have brotherhood, and we got to keep contact with each other. And
That's
if you ever
right.
need anything, I'm always here. But once again, thank you for coming on my show, bro. And thanks again.
Awesome. No, thank you. You're the man, Sergeant Roof. Appreciate it.
Err. Thank you, Master Guns. Thanks, brother. All right, friends and fam. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap up another amazing interview with Master Guns Cox. Wow, I got to learn a lot. I never really got to hear anybody's experience in the Marine Corps band. Always been intrigued about them. So having him on talking about all that was great. And also hearing the experience of what it's like for a Marine Corps band member to be deployed during time of war. So that was great to hear all those experiences. And like I said, if you guys ever get the chance, go give his podcast a like, a follow, all that stuff. It is completely free, doesn't cost a thing. And hey, fall asleep just listening to his podcast, The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. And hey, we say it on this show, don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. Until next time, we'll see you guys.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.